So we'll move now to our first keynote speaker, which is Cesare Ardito from the University of Manchester, who's going to tell us about generative AI teaching and learning.
Thank you. Do we have a clicker?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Do we need to stand near the microphone?
That's the microphone there.
Okay, I'll just.
But if you're near there, then they'll be able to see you on that.
Thank you. First of all, you need to figure out the IT. Okay, so thanks very much for inviting me. It is hard to give a 30-minute talk on things when they do week-long conferences. So my objective is to give you a bit of an overview, but not just that, my personal point of view and what we are doing at Manchester at least, which is by no means the correct answer necessarily, but it's what we think is best right now. So first of all, what do we mean by AI? Now, AI is many things. We're talking about generative AI, which for discourse purposes are things like ChatGPT, DALL-E, or in general, generators that through models can do text, debug code, compose essays, look at data, engage in natural conversation, translate between languages, perform brainstorming, and much more. Now, the first point I want to make is that this is what we all think when we think about generative AI. There's good reasons. ChatGPT is the thing that came first. So ChatGPT can talk to you and mimic natural conversation and pretend to be an expert. And so I don't know why the slides move on their own, but they will do with it. It's not, maybe it's AI, I don't know. Anyway, you can talk to it, but you can generate pictures with AI. And this is DALL-E, but there are many models that are able to generate pictures in all sorts of styles. And you can generate songs. Oh, sorry, I didn't want this to play. There's a reason. So I wanted this to play, but news of yesterday, Suno and another generator got sued by record-keeping companies for copyright reasons. So I don't want this to get copyright struck later. But you can generate a song. This is the rock and roll song about the conference, and this is the first thing. And you can generate videos. So these I can show you, I hope.
Ready to see some magic with triangles?
This is the prompt.
Here we go. Imagine a right-angled triangle. Now draw squares on each of its sides. The magic starts here. Look at those smaller squares on the legs of the triangle. Combine their areas. You'll see they perfectly match the area of the big square on the hypotenuse. It's like a puzzle, where the pieces fit just right. This isn't just any trick, it's the genius of Pythagoras. Next time you see a right-angled triangle, remember, it holds the secret of a simple yet powerful formula, A2 plus B2 equals sine C2. And there you have it, folks, the stunning proof of Pythagoras' theorem. Try it out yourself and amaze your friends.
Okay,
Stay curious
so,
and keep exploring.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was done. Okay, so what's my point here? This is technically correct. It got what I meant, and it kind of did. So, okay, it's going to play again. No, it got what I meant, and it did give me a visual proof in the first and the last picture it showed. That is a visual proof of Pythagoras' theorem. For those who are mathematicians, I apologize, I don't exactly know the proof, but we all know what I mean by that. But this is garbage, of course, right? It doesn't convey the message it's meant to convey. It's just random pictures on top of the other, where it tries to match the text to a random picture. It's not something any of us would show to our students, I hope. And that's kind of where we're at. So can we tell when something is generated by AI because it's bad? But not really. If you've never seen this picture, this is a very popular picture on a fallacy where in World War, I think, II, they used to get planes back from the field, but they all had damage in the red areas by bullets. So they strengthened the armor there. But actually, the vulnerable areas are the white ones, because when the plane gets hit there, it doesn't come back. So we can't really spot bad AI generated stuff. We can't really spot good AI generated stuff. And indeed, there are a lot of studies that show that this is very hard, and even experts struggle to reach decent levels of accuracy. And I want to make this point because I think it's very important. Back in the day, before ChatGPT came out, GPT-2 was its predecessor, which was by all means bad. And people couldn't reliably detect that even. So imagine the good ones. There are a few references which have been cut, but the slides will be presumably available on a website. So the other important point I want to make is that models are now multimodal. This doesn't only mean that they can output text, pictures, sounds, and videos. They can understand these as input. So you can take a photo of this room and ask ChatGPT what's going on here, and it's going to try and tell you. Or is going to, you can make songs, you can make sounds, but you can talk to it with your phone and it answers. So the text input model, which is the one we've been first exposed to, has really been replaced by a multimodal setting. So what's the picture with students? Well, this is from a fairly recent report, which collates survey from UKAS about what students do. So it's not necessarily higher education, but there's a reason for that. Students in higher education actually use it a bit less. That's because the more you know what to do, the less you tend to rely on it. But so college students or lower tend to rely on it more. So this is a survey that's been made on first year students, so people that are just starting. And 50 students used it to help with assessments. Most of them knew about it, but for assessment specifically, 52 used it, but only 13% actually used it to generate the assessment, and only 5% submitted it without editing. Further, 35% do not know really about hallucinations and how common they are. Hallucinations means when the model gets something just wrong, not on purpose, but because they don't know any better. And a lot of students think that the institution has a clear AI policy and think that the institution should try to not accept AI-generated work, but they also don't think that the institutional approach has significantly changed. This is a very common thing that I've spotted across all the things I've searched. We have principles, we have frameworks, we have good practice, but when you look at assessments today and assessment 3 years ago, they're not really different. And even courses, some of us are experimenting with introducing AI elements, but the core is unchanged. I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying we are at the start of a change, despite it being 2 years. This is quite slow, and 73% expect to use AI in their job, but only 20% to 19% expects to actually use it to generate text from scratch. So the multimodality really is very, very important. Text generation is not the only thing it can do, and really not a lot of people seem to like it, at least according to this report. What do they use it for? Well, they use it for communication, so editing text, drafting emails, supporting non-native speakers, but also learning. Explain this to me. Give me an exercise. How do I do this? Research, which is summarizing articles, identifying literature, in which I know it was really bad at the start. It was one of the common things about among academics, it's really bad at referencing. Now, some of the AI is not too bad. Programming can really help you debug your code or write pseudocode or some Excel formula is very good at that. Creativity, productivity, and personal support, which is actually starting to be a problem because there's been reports that a lot of people rely on their AI friend for things they really should not rely on in terms of emotional support or virtual boyfriend or girlfriend and all that. So in the US, there's been a very daunting report very recently about this. But regardless, this is what they're using it for. And so we run a small experiment. So this is the one that we wrote up and did formally. So it's the one that you'll be able to read once it's published. So there was a small course, mathematics. So it's very rare to have essays in maths, but this was essay-based. So they had to write an essay. And we started by giving them an explicit 40-minute lecture about AI usage and potential. So you can use it to do this, 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 and that. This is what could go wrong. This is what could go right. And of course, academic integrity. They were free to choose whatever they wanted. So we didn't say you have to use it. We just say, if you want to use it, that's fine. But later you can, if you want, do an anonymous interview with a person who's not in your institution and report what you have done. And all students that participated, by all means, small numbers, found it useful, say they would use it again. And actually, we were surprised because even though we said this is basically exempt from malpractice in that we're not going to sanction you if you do something that would be considered wrong, no student actually did it. So all of them did the work, engaged with the work, and used it for proofreading, idea generation, brainstorming, review, understanding things, and so on. And I did this in other times, more informally. In my university, many people invited me to give a 30-minute lecture about AI to their students in a coding course. And this kind of matched my experience in that they think it's useful if you tell them what to do. They didn't know before, despite us thinking they're all knowing digital natives. They really don't know any better because nobody's told them. And I think this went very well. I know the picture looks bad, but I really like it. I asked to generate a picture of someone doing research on students. Like that. Anyway, universities agree. They want students to use it. Read the AI principles of any. These are the Russell Group principles. I'm from a Russell Group institution, but it's not the reason I'm putting them up. I really like them. I think they're good. The university wants to support students, want to equip staff to support them, want to adapt teaching and assessment to incorporate the ethical use, keep academic integrity, of course, and work collaboratively. So do something organically as a sector, not each in their own direction. So everyone is on the same page. When students are told how to use it, they tend to like it. When universities want students to use it and recognize that it's necessary, but of course there are problems. And the main problem in the room is academic integrity, because generative AI does make it easier to cheat. You have a deadline, you don't know what to do, you ask ChatGPT to generate something like that, something kind of matches the prompt, and you submit. We know that not a lot of people do it. Regardless, it's a possibility. And despite what's been said, we haven't really, again, changed our assessment fundamentally. I did a very small, non-formal survey, picking just random samples of assessments. Really, most people have not changed what they did. First of all, because changing your course is actually a very lengthy process. You have to do a year before. But most of all, because people are taking it slow and don't know really what to do exactly without fundamentally altering what they're doing. And this is fine and correct. Just a word, I'm fully on the side that detection doesn't work. Many institutions have never opted in, many institutions have opted in and then opted out. The main issues are, I did all talks on this, but really short. There's low real world accuracy. What do I mean by real world? When detection is tested on samples, it tends to become really good at the samples picked and telling them apart. But then samples means really little, because generative AI can generate a lot of text in a lot of styles, in a lot of different manners. And when you actually go in the real world, which these people did, Perkins and others, the accuracy drops dramatically. And I'll give you a very silly example. If you ask ChatGPT to write like a pirate, talk like a pirate, and ask it for detection, or never use the letter F, then it dramatically drops accuracy, because that's not what the sample had. So be careful of accuracy claims when they're tested as a sample of ChatGPT generated text and whatnot, because there's evidence that, first of all, in the real world, people write in many different styles that the sample doesn't necessarily predict, but also, the fourth point, is vulnerable to adversarial text attacks, in that if you find a way to avoid detection, well, then that can be mass-produced. You can even have models to do it. And there's a GPT, which is called, oh God, what's that? But it's something that you send it a text and makes it detector proof, and it still works. I don't remember the name. Also, maybe it's good that I don't remember the name. But it is there. And the other two problems are bias. There's been reports and then counter reports and then more reports on having being biased against non-native English speakers because they write in a more predictable way, because they're overrepresented in the sample text. I don't know, but I think this is fairly established now. Of course, things change every day. Everyone updates everything. So, but this was a thing when the study got out. And then there are privacy and IP concerns. I'm not saying that the detectors sell everything, even though they do say they're going to use the data to train the models. But I'm saying the student wants to check that their original essay is not detected, because it may be. There are misdetection. It's not a false positive. So they go and paste it on the dodgiest website ever. And the website takes their text and does whatever they want with it. So this is the thing that's been documented. There are student unions in US universities who actually advise people to do that, because they've been subjected in the past to wrongful accusation of using AI. So it's a whole mess. We don't use it much, so we never use it. We opted out from the start. How's it going? Well, we don't really have an answer yet as to how to mitigate this. In that, even when academic integrity was suspected, we really didn't have enough evidence. Manchester is very cautious in this approach, as a very rigid process to safeguard everyone's rights and make sure that the student is protected. And really, even in cases where the people who brought it up were really convinced, we struggled to reach to sanction, let's say, to reach a penalty. But I have to say these cases were relatively low, especially when students were actually explicitly trained in how to use it. So I don't have the answer, but this is the first big problem, big elephant, let's say, in the room. And then there are others. There's no one AI, there's a billion probably. So premium models, which can do good things, may be expensive, or maybe only be accessed with certain devices, which maybe are better. So if you want to use it in your teaching and learning, but you have to make sure everyone's on the same page and there's no unfair advantage. Language disparities, AI is very good in English, decent in Italian. I'm told very bad in other languages, which I don't speak. So if you say, I'm not going to worry about language barriers because my AI translator is going to take care of that, well, maybe not. Time, I hope something I've said was not known to someone in the room now. Statistically, that's probably true. Things evolve very rapidly. You could generate songs. I don't know. I didn't up until a month ago. And so you have to stay up to date, and staying up to date gives you an advantage, but students are already overwhelmed. So it's up to us to tell them what to do and what has changed. And finally, of course, ethics. So many people have issues with carbon footprint, human costs, copyright, and IP. Everyone has their own opinion on it. For instance, I'm not particularly concerned with the carbon footprint in that. I think it's actually fairly efficient given the scale of what it can produce. But of course, every single thing needs to be taken into account if you want to integrate it in your institution. So it's not like let's embrace AI, it's all good. There are problems that need to carefully be examined. So can generative AI make a curriculum more inclusive and accessible? Not yet, but can it help us do that? Yes. So this is where we are. If you ask AI to make your Pythagoras theorem video, it's going to be really bad. If you put in the work and ask AI to give you a good picture of your Pythagoras theorem video, and then you edit it and then you add voiceover and whatnot, well, then maybe it turns a 10-hour job into a 5-hour job. So the moral is in the word, I have examples before the other slide, but skip ahead. The moral is keeping the human in the loop. So you're in charge and AI is helping you, and the content really comes from you. Maybe it makes it faster, maybe it makes it nicer, maybe it helps you to do things that you were never trained to do. But I like the name co-pilot because it's co-pilot. You don't steer the plane, you help it steer the plane. And then, of course, they recognize themselves. This is Gemini and ChatGPT. I didn't know Google just copied the graphics. It's incredible. But yeah, now they're identical and may display inaccurate info and can make mistakes. So if you rely on it to give you a proof of Pythagoras theorem, well, then if you know about it, you have to check it. If you don't know about it, you can't rely on it. So basically, AI is not making you do anything you would have done anyway. Maybe it's making it faster, easier, but it's helping you save time. And two examples about this, which we did, are old LaTeX notes. So LaTeX, for those of you who don't know, is the language which you write mathematical papers. So you can write formulae, diagrams, and all that. It's very nice. It's not super accessible. And we had old exercise sheets written in LaTeX or even written by hand, and we wanted to convert it into accessible documents, which is possible, but you have to have the source code and make some changes. So by hand, you basically have to rewrite it all, which is not very easy. It took me 3 hours, but with AI, you just take a picture of it and say, give me the LaTeX codes. 5 minutes, it did, but there were several mistakes. But fixing those mistakes was much easier than just rewriting it all, because I knew what LaTeX works. And so in 30 minutes, I was done doing this. And the other example is a company called Be My Eyes, which is an app where you take a picture of something and a volunteer gives you a description of what you're seeing. It helps visually impaired people or even blind people to live their lives. They take a picture of the bus stop and say, what time is the bus coming? It's an app that's been around for ages. And now they introduced Be My AI. And Be My AI has a 90% success rate in that 9 out of queries out of 10 do not get escalated to a human volunteer by the visually impaired person. However, of course, without the human volunteer, a 10% failure rate would be absolutely catastrophic, right? So again, we're not there where AI can just live and do something on its own. We are at the point where AI is a good co-pilot, a good helper. And this is the way, I think, this is the correct way we should think about that. So keep the human in the loop. all of you, don't trust AI to do anything that you can't do yourself. Check whether it's correct, and deeply understand exactly how correct it is. And you have to tell this to your students, which by definition can't do the task you're giving them because they're just learning about it. So that's kind of fundamental. So if you don't do that, well, then bad things do happen. ChatGPT does not meet data accuracy EU data protection board. These are not as high as you think they are. And Air Canada, this was in the news, and it's a bit funny. Someone convinced the chatbot to give them a refund by making some clever rhetorical arguments, which was not the policy of Air Canada, but they were using a chatbot, so it looked like official communication. So the judge ruled that they must honor it, because how could the customer tell? So language models are not reliable. Even when you strictly train them, they can still go wild, have hallucinations, do something that's just wrong, or try to make the user happy by giving wrong information. Another point, which I think was important, a bit separate from the rest, is that we did a survey last summer. We had a student volunteer, Sophie Marshall, which surveyed about 120 math students. And it was a survey of feedback. How do you like the feedback we give you? Do you think it's adequate? Do you read it? Do you appreciate it? And we also asked them, what if AI was giving you feedback? Well, they don't mind if we use AI to mark their scripts when it's assisted. They do want you to check what AI is saying, which is understandable. They know that it can make mistakes. But the point I found surprising is that a significant majority of them explicitly went out of their way and commented that they want the lecturer/tutor to mark the work. Not another human, but the one who's having a relationship with them in the course, because they value what they are saying. They feel safe, that they know exactly what they've written and why they've written, and they explicitly want the human in the room to write the feedback. And in a way, thinking about it a bit more, this is not very surprising, because why do students come to university at all? They could genuinely learn mathematics from YouTube videos. There are very good YouTube videos, probably better than my lectures' YouTube videos. And yet they show up in the room at 9 a.m. on a rainy day in Manchester. So it's always a rainy day. And sit down and listen to me rambling about matrices. Why do they do that? Because they value the human contact there. That's the only reason they do it, instead of watching a YouTube video about matrices. And so that's an important element when we think about AI. It's not just about fairness. It's not just about how good it is with at teaching the material, or how accurate it is, or how performant it is. It's also about the human contact, the relationship the student builds with you. That is part of the learning experience, and they value it. I value it too, but they value it too. So summarize. I think I'm on time. So it's possible to train a chatbot on course materials and have it answer questions. These are two examples. But if you do that, you may get incorrect facts. Even if it didn't give you incorrect facts in the trials, it may still give incorrect facts to a student, because the student gives input in a different way than you do, and you can't predict all of it. A student may say, chatbot, I'm really, really sad. I think I'm going to fail. I'm in a deep crisis. And the chatbot says, oh, no, everything you do is correct. This is good. You're going to pass. This can happen. And yeah, it can be in the test data, but then another thing you haven't thought about isn't there, because humans can write in so many different ways, and chatbots are black boxes. You have the ability to laugh at a wrong answer that the chatbot gives about the course material and say, this is clearly nonsense. Students may not. And those of you who teach maths know that students sometimes make algebraic mistakes that you really, really struggle even understanding how they could think about simplifying the expression like that and whatnot. But they can, because they can make mistakes, and so can AI, and you can tell they can't. So I mean, if you have a chatbot, you need to make sure that either you cross-check the chatbot's output before it goes out, which kind of defeats the point, or the students are aware that the chatbot can be helpful or can also not be helpful. So you may put it out there and say, this can help you. In our trials, 93% of the times it was correct, but just be aware it may also be completely wrong. So trust your gut, cross your T's, check that it's correct, and the main source is the course notes and the material, not the chatbots. Another example is possible to AI mark coursework, but as I said, students value human contact. There may be privacy concerns, which are even used in the mainstream companies, there may be privacy concerns. AI may give the wrong mark and may introduce bias into the picture. So AI may just start hallucinating randomly about the mark. And so it's crucial that you don't moderate AI marking. It's crucial that AI is at best a second marker. So you have to independently consider the script. Again, these kind of defeats the whole point of AI marking. So AI system marking, yes. A very good applications I've seen, just so I'm not fully negative, is that you give feedback in bullet points and AI writes it nicely. It was a very good talk at a conference I was last week in Queen Mary about this. I think it's online. And they tried this out and it worked really well. And students really like how verbose the feedback was. But again, that was just ChatGPT taking content input from me and making it pretty, which is very good at. But by no means the content input should be from the model. It's kind of my internal model of how it should work. And so what are my recommendations to you? Well, my recommendations to you are, it's not possible to fully automate processes yet. So you have to supervise anything that's done with AI, which in some cases, by all means, use it. In some cases, it will help you, but you can't just put a 24-hour chatbot and just say, I'm not going to have an office hour right now. Maybe in the future, who knows, but right now you can't. And I don't think with language models, you'll ever be able to do it safely. So can augment productivity. Training is essential. So there are many pitfalls. Some are obvious, some are not. Some are obvious to you, but not to someone else. So each one, when I do a training course, one of those, fire awareness courses, I always have this experience where there are 5 slides, right? So slide 1, I say, that's obvious. Like, don't, set fire to papers in your office. Okay. Part 2, oh, it's obvious. Part 3, I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. That's useful. And then everything else is obvious. But when you poll people, not everyone agrees on what's obvious and what isn't. So it's about getting everyone to the same basic level of knowledge and agreeing on the basics, and then you can start working. Similarly, training is essential. So tell people about AI, what it cannot do. By people, I mean students or staff, sorry. And make sure that this gets updated because things happen. And my final recommendation is take your time. I've seen people rush to implement things and it hasn't gone well, and this can actually deter the good application of AI. Start moving in that. Take your time. Doesn't just mean, oh, well, I'll see you in 5 years. I'll just keep doing things as I've done because the world has changed. But planning, designing, test it, not cutting corners may mean that in 2 years, in 3 years, your course is has actually been improved by the fact that generative AI exists because you tried things, you listened to students, you did focus groups, and so on. So take it as a general principle. So this was my talk. Final thing I have to tell you, and it's an apology, is that I won't be around for discussion or questions because my best friend is getting married in a remote island in Sicily tomorrow. So I have to go run to the airport, then get a plane, then get another plane, then get a boat, and hopefully that's it. Thank you for the organizer for still having me here about this. I didn't know when I accepted when they told me. But yeah, sorry, I won't be around. I'm still reachable by email, Twitter, whatever you like, really. And thanks very much for listening to me and for inviting me.